inside look at police misconduct claims from a whistleblower punished as she comes forward to speak. Looking for a legal fix for people who are not allowed to visit loved ones in the hospital due to COVID-19. It was not as easy as it seemed. How is Denver's best-known muralist getting so much beautiful work done so quickly these days? And CDOT spends almost $200,000 to ask a question about marijuana that you could have just shouted upstairs to your teenager. That's next. We have heard a lot from the outside about police misconduct, the views from activists and from legislators. Tonight we get the view from the inside of the law enforcement discipline process, from a whistleblower who came out of the Denver Sheriff's Department. Brittany Earhart is being punished for what she's saying, which is precisely why you should hear it. She spoke with 9 Wants to Know's Jeremy Hohola.
She works in the public integrity unit of the Sheriff's Department and claims there's an integrity problem within the discipline process itself.
Thank you, Madam President.
As lawmakers debate a police reform bill at the Capitol, investigator Brittany Earhart surprisingly told lawmakers on Wednesday the discipline system is broken.
I am seeing that officers who have engaged in conduct that warrants discipline, including inappropriate use of force, are being absolved of all wrongdoing. These officers are then returned to their posts, interacting with the public, having learned that they can act with impunity.
On the day she testified, Earhart was under suspension for leaking a misconduct case to the media. That case from last year involves a deputy who can be seen on camera punching an inmate in a wheelchair who just spat on him. The deputy claimed in a report that he actually raised my hands towards his mouth in an attempt to block his spit. Despite lying about the punch, the deputy wasn't disciplined. Lying is often a fireable offense for officers in Denver.
Reports are being changed, facts are being changed, and that's what I am seeing.
Earhart told me over Zoom she is not blowing the whistle because she's angry about getting suspended. She says it's more about doing what's right.
You know, I'm not going to say that this isn't scary for me. It's very scary and it's very intimidating. I think it's the environment that we're currently in as a society that's pushing me to come forward. I care about my job, I care about my personal integrity, and I care about the role that my job plays to the community.
Earhart expects to lose her job. The punching deputy still works at the jail. Jeremy Hohola, 9 News.
Denver's head of public safety sent us a lengthy statement saying that Earhart violated the confidentiality clause of her job when she leaked information to the media and the public. City also claims that she made threats to other employees before she was suspended. Roughly 200 complaints have been filed against the Denver police related to protests since George Floyd's death more than 2 weeks ago. DPD says it is currently investigating 61 of the 200 cases. There may be some overlap in there. The majority of the open cases are for excessive use of force. The state legislature promised to focus on COVID-19 related bills when the session unpaused itself during the pandemic last month. Then social justice became America's top issue. But a coronavirus bill just introduced at the Capitol would require patients to get one visitor that they could not be denied due to the pandemic. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger watched that bill get watered down almost immediately.
Our conversation actually turned to, what if this is the one where you don't come home?
Steve Reitner told this legislative committee about losing his wife, Elizabeth. She didn't die from COVID-19, but COVID-19 visitor restrictions prevented him from being able to see her in the hospital.
And I told her, I said, babe, don't stick around for us. As hard as it's going to be, we'll be okay, I promise. Those aren't the conversations you should have over FaceTime.
This morning, House Bill 1425 would have allowed a patient to pick one person that the hospital could not stop from visiting if the sole reason for the prohibition is to reduce the risk of transmission of COVID-19. Though the bill said the hospital could set some limitations. But by the time the bill ended up in this committee, it had already been watered down with a complete rewrite. And just like that, the bill changed from a requirement that hospitals allow one designated visitor despite COVID-19 to a suggestion that they improve visitation policies in the future.
This morning, the Colorado Hospital Association had come out against the provisions of the original bill. One other thing during that committee hearing, Steve Reitner really just wanted to have a conversation with the hospital to make sure there's some dialogue between the people who want to go visit patients and the hospitals themselves. And the committee chair actually said that someone from the hospital was listening in on that committee, Kyle, and they promised a conversation. But one of the sponsors of the bill said if it was going to be simply solved by a conversation, they would have had to have a bill like this in the first place.
That is so interesting, Marshall, because late last night I was listening into the hearing on the police accountability bill, and I heard Democratic State Representative Leslie Herod of Denver say essentially the same thing, which is until we brought this bill, we were not going to have this conversation. There's a lot of dancing around the edges, but sometimes you need to put it on the table before people really start talking to each other.
And Steve was thankful that that conversation could happen, but then he also put it back on the hospital. How come you weren't prepared with more PPEs to let people visit their family members in the hospital? How come you didn't learn from SARS? How come you didn't learn from the previous incidents that you're just now learning it now? Thanks for the conversation, but you should have known by now.
Yeah, and bottom line is families need a solution. People need to be able to see each other. All right, thank you, Marshall. So the number of Coloradans currently hospitalized with COVID-19, it continues to creep down. This is fantastic news. 168 patients currently in Colorado's hospitals due to coronavirus. 20 have been discharged or transferred within the last 24 hours. So in the middle of this pandemic, lots of business there for a while. Hospitals are losing money. We have talked to you about why. So much elective work and people staying home. So now there are hospital employees being furloughed or laid off. One such hospital is in such bad shape that they're apparently counting printer paper to save money. Here's Anusha Roy.
There is a domino effect. So many people have lost their jobs in Colorado. More than 500,000 people could join Medicaid and the Child Health Plan Plus by the end of the year.
Medicaid pays at a lower rate.
Elective procedures bring in a chunk of money for hospitals.
And those are still pretty slow to come back.
Some people are still not comfortable going in for appointments.
CHA is still projecting that the total COVID impact to hospitals across the state will be about $4.1 billion.
That's through the end of the year. Big systems like UC Health saw revenue drop by $176 million in March and April. They're using cash on hand as a buffer and are starting to see more patients come in. But how this year plays out is still up in the air. Denver Health said they could break even or see a $10 million loss by the end of the year. They've got a hiring freeze focused on non-clinical staff. Some staff have taken voluntary furloughs, and more patients are using telehealth, which means doctors could see more patients in a day. But the smaller you get, the harder it gets. Like at Lincoln Community Hospital, they're cutting back on buying certain supplies like for surgeries that aren't happening or new medical equipment. They're even watching how much paper they use, printing on both sides, hoping to save money.
COVID is impacting all hospitals.
The federal government has offered more than $340 million in grants and $1.3 billion in loans to help Colorado hospitals, but hospitals say they're still worried. They also need to still be prepared for COVID-19, and that's changing how people get their health care.
But it just might be that if last year you only had to wait 2 weeks for a service, now maybe we're scheduling out a month or 6 weeks.
So going back to Denver Health for just a moment, last month we talked about how more than 125 administrators were paid bonuses. Today, the CFO said the board is still looking into that compensation program. And as far as she can project, layoffs are not on the table right now. And Kyle, they're also not currently asking for furloughs.
Seems like everywhere you turn around Colorado, though, Anusha, you see hospitals building here, there, adding additions. UC Health has construction going on now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and despite everything that's going on, they were saying that it was important for them to continue to build a new tower. This was to help out University Colorado Hospital. They said last year they were at either 100% capacity, over capacity. So they said they needed to spend the money to make sure they're expanding their facilities so they have enough hospital beds for their patients.
All right, Anusha Roy, who's been keeping close track of hospitals, urban and rural, throughout this process. Thank you, Anusha. Coloradans are getting back out and about with some smart public health precautions, and that's really encouraging to see. It's great for our economy. It's good for our physical and our mental health. People are gauging their own risk level with COVID-19 and the risk level of the people that they're close to, and then they're making informed decisions about where to go and how much close contact with it to have with how many other people. Here's the deal, though. Just tell your grandma, okay? Or your friend with immune issues. Maybe just tell anybody that you're going to be close to, because we don't want a situation where people who have been avoiding risk and avoiding lots of contacts end up getting exposed because they assumed or were too embarrassed to ask if you are taking those same strict precautions before you come to visit. I get it. Everybody wants to see each other. They want to be close again. And we're starting to see some social circles reconnecting based on people who have a shared sense of risk tolerance. Obviously, if you think that you've been exposed to COVID-19 or you could have been, even if you feel fine, you should get tested. Tests are available. I also think you should disclose that before getting close to other people, especially because a lot of the risk factors that impact people aren't things that we can see. Just seems like the polite thing to do as Colorado gets back out and about. You ask us all the time, what happens to the pot tax money? It goes to research. Very important research with shocking conclusions. No, not at all. The conclusions were so obvious, I wonder why we paid for them. Their portraits are beautiful.
With all the sort of the protests and, people getting active, for me, I always tell artists that we are the visual historians of current times.
It is the stories the artists hope we'll remember next. Colorado's oil and gas regulators have approved some strong new protections for groundwater that both the industry and environmental groups decided they could support. Years' worth of work went into this as a result of last year's sweeping oil and gas reforms. These new rules require that the wellbores of oil and gas wells be lined with steel pipe and cement to keep whatever is inside from getting outside into our groundwater. Those rules take effect in November. CDOT just spent a whole lot of money to find out that people are driving while high because they don't think driving while high is that big of a deal. The agency surveyed 18,000 Coloradans over 2 years trying to craft a campaign to get people to stop driving while high. The study cost $195,000. It deduced that cannabis drivers drive while high because they don't think driving while high is that big of a deal. Found that many of them are skeptical about the laws dealing with impaired driving. The respondents said they want more research done on how much you can smoke or how much edibles you can consume before you are too impaired to drive, and how long you have to wait and before you're good to drive again. The research was paid for with marijuana tax cash fund monies. So the next time somebody asks you, "What about the pot tax?" It's our favorite question on Next. You can tell them that the answer is that a chunk of that money went to find out that people have the same dangerously nonchalant attitude about driving high that Americans have too long had about driving drunk.
Hi, it's me, Halver Flowstone, the new troll at Glenwood Caverns. No, I'm not the same troll as the one in Breckenridge. That's Isaac Hartstone. Are you saying all trolls look alike? Not cool. Anyway, just wanted to tell you the state has a new tourism campaign asking people to visit carefully because of COVID-19. It's all pretty basic unless you live in a cave, like me. Physical distancing, wearing masks, washing hands, staying home when you're sick, and respect the rules of us locals who live in the places you like to visit. And when you come up to the high country, stop by and say hi to me, Halver Flowstone. No, that's the other troll. You're showing the other troll. This is so insulting. We don't even look alike. Like he doesn't get enough attention. I heard he had to move. Didn't get along with the neighbors. Not sure. Check it out. I read it on the screen.
George Floyd, Elijah McClain, Breonna Taylor. We've learned their names and their stories, at least how each one unjustly ended. They also share a common connection to beauty in downtown Denver. There are artists who want us to see their faces and to know their stories. Here's our Byron Reed.
Sometimes collaboration between artists can be difficult when it comes to creative differences.
For me, it's like I love to sort of reflect my life and sort of what I'm going through and the people that I'm around.
But for artists Thomas Evans and Jairo Vega, it was the purpose of the artwork that brought them together last week.
I saw a wall coming back from lunch, and it just clicked to me that this is the right wall for a George Floyd mural. Started painting the first day, had a couple of friends come over, and Jairo was one of them.
I wasn't expecting him to be painting that. I didn't know what he was painting. No one told me what he was painting. And I was like, yeah, I'll help out, you know, for sure.
Together, the artists decided to paint 3 portraits downtown so people can remember these names.
So we did George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Elijah McClain,
who lost their lives to police officers.
I always tell artists that we are the visual historians of current times.
The climate makes me anxious. It makes me uncomfortable. But so does it for many other people. And that's something that I had to put aside.
The two say they wanted to come together in Denver to let their art speak to those who want to learn.
More positive visuals like this instead of hearing the sad stories. This is beautiful. I love it.
They're hoping their art will help usher the next generation of creativity.
What I want to see going forward is that artists more and more are part of that conversation.
Who will use their art to come together and make a change.
I understand it now, like what my purpose is in all this. I don't like it at times, but who better than me and him?
For Next,
We're trying to do as much as we can through the artwork that we do.
I'm Byron Reed.
We'll have an update on your generosity that broke the internet, along with your feedback next. Your generosity crashed the website of the small nonprofit that we are all supporting this week for our Word of Thanks segment. The Crowley Foundation website is working again tonight, and I just wanted to mention that in case some of you could not get through with your donations yesterday. This nonprofit does exceptional work supporting young black men in our community with mentoring and leadership training, so those guys can get through school and college and then come back and help lead the next generation and the rest of our community. So our goal each week is to see how many Next viewers are willing to kick in $5 for a great nonprofit. I'll match the first 50 Next viewers' donations. If you still want to help the Crowley Foundation, there's a link on the Next Facebook page, or we'll send it to you if you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. BJ Baudette writes in, says, thanks for giving us a place to show our support. So often you watch what's going on, you want to do something, anything, but you feel so helpless. Martin writes to say, thank you for helping us find ways to contribute to be part of the solution. And a guy named Rick sent me the receipt for a $1,000 donation to the Crowley Foundation, which he says his employer will match. Man, I appreciate anything. If you can do $5, that's huge. If you can do 1,000, oh my goodness. If your employer will match, that's huge. If all you're able to do is share the link on social media so that other people who might be in a position to give can give, that is exceptional too. Because I get what BJ is saying. I get what Martin is saying. You watch the news, you want to be able to do something, not just let it wash over you like a wave. So each week, each Wednesday, we are going to do something. $5 at a time for a small nonprofit that is going to feel that giving. It's going to be a big deal to them. So we invite you to join us in a word of thanks. And I'll see you next time.